Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of the HID podcast. So today we got someone who's special and who's really close to me. So I've got my buddy Sai Arvindh with me. He's been a very close friend of mine from my school days till now. He's been with me through my CA journey and even till now. So I'm really happy to have him on the podcast here. So we also did our articleship together in PwC in Stat Audit, and right now he's with Wells Fargo in the internal audit domain. So over to you, Sai.
Hey, hi Arvind. Hi viewers. First of all, Arvind, thank you so much for having me in your podcast. It's uh, it's such a pleasure to be your guest today, and forever privileged to be your friend, right? And to tell about us before introducing myself, I think myself and Arvind are one of the thickest friends I ever had, and we met during our school days, during my 12th grade specifically. And we rode across the CA journey together. And I would, frankly tell you that he is one of the reasons that I'm who I am today. So I owe it to him a lot. And Arvind, I'm really proud of what you are doing post your qualification, especially what you're giving back to the fraternity through your YouTube and LinkedIn content. That's really amazing. Keep doing the good work you always do. And so I'm Sai Arvindh and I'm a chartered accountant. I'm currently residing in Bengaluru. I work for the internal audit team in Wells Fargo. So people who are who have not heard about Wells Fargo is a big four US bank, just like SBI, HDFC, ICICI, Axis. So to tell the other competitor banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank. So, I was not aware of a company called Wells Fargo until I got shortlisted in my campus interview. So I just wanted to clarify that. So this is briefly about me, as he mentioned that, we both did our articleship together in PwC in external audit. And later, though we are not in the same company, we are still, in different banks. Like we, as a group of friends, we, did our articleship together, but we are all in different banks. So it's good to have our we are in different domains. We get to share the knowledge we gain together, and then we have a collective pool of learnings. So I think that's more strategical. I mean, it didn't happen as that was not our plan, but it happened in a way that we are getting benefited. So yeah.
Yeah, so Sai, so first things first. So what skill set do you think someone needs to get into internal audit? Like let's say someone has not done start audit in their articleship or internal audit in their articleship. Let's say they have been in a completely different domain, which is like miles apart from internal audit. Like what skill sets do you think that they need to develop to probably crack an internal audit interview? And how do you think they can develop the same? If you can probably explain that.
I feel internal audit, there's no particular skill requirement for internal audit. I'll tell you very frankly, because because I'll tell you, though I have had a external audit background, right? I won't say that's the primary reason that I got selected for internal audit role. You internal auditors, probably like Bengaluru, it welcomes and accommodates people from different regions. It's like there's no specific qualification. Don't need to be a chartered accountant. You can be from an engineering background. You can be an undergraduate, having a BCom degree. You can have a simple thing, but the internal audit has that bandwidth to offer different workloads. Like if you don't have any work experience, if you don't have any basic skill set, it'll give you the opportunity to start from the scratch. It will give you, installments of exposures to business processes, and then you get to learn, and then you develop with experience, and that's where you get transitioned into a bigger roles in internal audit. So it's broad that way. So there's no particular skill requirement. It's just your curiosity to learn about business processes. It's I think that's the primary requirement. And the other thing I would say is, if with this competitive environment we have, if you say that amongst 100 people you want to be one of the primary fit for internal audit role, I think you can get yourself exposed to a lot of tech aspects of business processes, like data analytical tools like Power BI, SQL, Aldrich, something like that. But now AIs are slowly, replacing these. But you can again, these things will help you, kind of link it with AI, because these are the base tools these are still in place. These are prominently being used, and I don't think they'll run out of usage for at least for the next 10 to 15 years. So I think that is the base. That's how you get yourself into it. And I think, yeah, if the skill requirement, I think one should be the tech aspect. The other thing is, I think the curiosity and professional skepticism which you need to maintain. And it's always beneficial if you have some level of business understanding, some exposure to business roles. Like if you are in industry, if you are let's say that if you are having exposure to say O2C process, right? So I think somewhere that you have an end-to-end understanding of the entire cycle, business cycle for that particular process. Then I think you'll have a role. The internal audit is not specifically restricted to a particular business process, right? It gives you exposure across to a lot of business processes. That's one of the reasons I was very happy and comfortable to choose internal audit. But I think some level of business understanding. I won't say it's imperative, but I think it should be really helpful. But I think the base criteria is curiosity, because for me, I'll tell you, when they ask me, in the interview, like, they generally try to ask what you did in your articleship, but I felt, more than that, I don't have any particular knowledge about any, business process. As such, I have not worked for a business. I had just audited a financial statement which had related processes. So in that way, they don't expect you to, bring a lot of experiences, a lot of skill sets to the table. So that's in that way, it's good.
Okay, great. So, what were the questions that were asked in your interview on the campus for internal audit? If you can maybe tell the viewers that.
Okay, probably I was not asked too many questions, but I think not only for Wells Fargo, across all the other companies where I gave my interview, I felt I was asked this common question, that what's that important learning which you had during your articleship days. See, they know that you are a fresher, you're being taken for a job for the first time, but they still like to know your business acumen, something which you have worked upon, and whatever you have learned or whatever you have delivered as a value addition, because they still like to train you, but they still want to have a resource which is already well equipped, right? If you have something which you already have, right, it's better to tap on from there, correct? So in that way, that's one common question. And I had a few list of value additions which I gave during my articleship days to my clients. So I had them ready, I had those answers ready, and I gave them. So those were more of them were related to the processes. So I had kind of prioritized them, because those the employers who are seeking a role for an internal audit, they would like to test the amount of learning which I had in business processes. So that's how. So I was asked about, can you explain me the business cycle around O2C process? So I had to just start from how an order is being placed, and then how it's being finally the goods or services are being delivered to the customer, and the revenue is being collected. So that's how the questions were asked. And I think these were the two broad questions. The way I answered, they felt that okay, this should be fine for the entry level guy. So it was good that way. So I think more or less across all the other interviews which I had, I think these were the questions. Broadly, it's about the important learning or the value addition you gave during your articleship days, or whatever prior experiences you have. That's what they expect, because they for a fact know whatever theoretical knowledge you had, you have cleared CA. There's nothing to test on your standards. So there's nothing to test on your memory. It's just you have cleared your exams. So it's just that how you are going to deal with. It's more of EQ rather than IQ. So EQ is emotional quotient. So it's how you handle people, how you handle a job, how you handle a difficult task given a particular constraints. So I think that is the focus which they uh, want you to have as a upgrowing professional.
Right, great. So a couple of things I would just like to add on is that definitely risk control matrix is also something that you're going to be tested upon in your internal audit interview. So that is an interview's favorite I would like to add on. And I think if you're probably preparing for an internal audit interview, I think you can probably go through the ICA's guidance note on ECOFAR. So that is also something which you can probably touch upon in your interview to demonstrate to the interviewer that, okay, you have a good understanding on the subject. And then along with that, you can probably demonstrate the value additions that you have carried out in your field, be it stat audit, or even if you're probably from a tax background, I feel that if you're able to show the value addition that you've created in tax, you can probably provide a confidence to the interviewer that, okay, I can create the same value in internal audit to the other stakeholders also when I'm offered this role. So I think that is also something you can add. As Sai was emphasizing, there is no hard and fast rule that you need to have an internal audit or stat audit experience. You can probably demonstrate value addition in any field, be it tax or be it transfer pricing, anything for that matter. But if you're able to demonstrate that, okay, you can add value and you can probably communicate very fluently and confidently with the stakeholders and give them the assurance, I think you're good to go, is what I believe. Yeah. So just moving on to the next question. So how does a day at work look in Wells Fargo in internal audit, and what are the deliverables that you probably provide to the end users? If you could just take us through the same.
So what I do in internal audit. So we just basically we do two broad things to I have a lot of things in running in my mind right now to say, but I will try to restrict my answer to this. So we basically do two things. One is design assessment and effectiveness testing of controls. So let me just quickly tell what is a control. And I know the people who are looking at this video might have some good knowledge about what a control is, but still I would like to start with the basics and then go. A control is something which is brought into place to help mitigate a risk. So what is a risk? A risk is something which might not go as what you planned. So especially in a bank. So when you ask specifically what I do in internal audit in Wells Fargo, so Wells Fargo is a bank, right? So banks have different lines of defenses, right? So it basically any company or any organization has a risk. So to mitigate this risk, so we can't completely eliminate a risk. That's not possible. So to mitigate this risk, we need to have a corporate defense or a shield. That is a control. So they bring in things which can help reduce the impact. So a bank specifically has 3 to 4 levels of defenses. So the first level is the team which works on creating the controls, which give birth to the controls. They are like the parents, right? So for a risk, they give birth to a baby called a control. Now, these people are the owners of the control. These people design the process, they develop the policies, the control environments. Like in audit, you would have learned there are like 5 aspects of internal controls, right? So these are the same thing. So these people design all the 5 aspects of the controls, and they design the policies and procedures. Now what happens is these people are the owners and they are like the parents, right? They are biased about the child. So we need to have a foolproof evidence that this child is being brought up in a good manner. Is a child who's well enough to address the risk, right? Tackle the risk. Now he's being sent to the school. Here are the teachers. They are the second line of defense. These team, we broadly call them IRM, internal risk management. These people, kind of do the testings on these baby. They test these controls. So that's how we do something called as design assessment and control effectiveness. I'll tell you what's a design assessment and a control effectiveness testing. But there are these second line of defenses who test these babies to they give a better independent review or an assurance whether this baby is being brought up in a right way. So these are the teachers. They have a less bias. Now after this, they come to the third line of defense, right? They pass the first level. They are being born. They come to the second level, school. Third level, I would say probably the employers at the job level. So third level, third line of defense, that's where we are placed, internal auditors, right? So we give a more independent assurance. Though internal audit, we as internal auditors in Wells Fargo, we are still part of Wells Fargo, right? We are not an independent
Exactly. You are employees of the organization.
team or department. Yes, right. We are still
Exactly.
part of Wells Fargo, but we act in a more independent way compared to the first and the second line of defenses. So we do these again. We do these design and control effectiveness testing. The testing levels and intensity varies among all the 3 levels, but we do it at a more independent level, and we don't have any bias, right? We just target the controls. We do this testing. So what is a design assessment and what is an effectiveness testing? Let's take an example of a car. Okay, so what's the risk for a car, right? The car being bumped somewhere, car meeting an accident. So how can you while riding, the risk is unavoidable. So let's try to reduce the impact, right? What can be the measures put in?
And probably slow down a bit. That's one thing you can do.
So this airbag, if you call this as a control,
Right.
what is the proper design for this airbag, right? Placing the airbag in a particular place where it can safeguard the driver, the riders, right? So, you placing the airbag in a different place, like at the top of the, car or on the windshield or, somewhere behind, it's not going to serve the purpose. So it needs to be, placed in a particular place where it protects the driver or the pillion riders. So in front of the steering. So that's the design. So we'll test whether this airbag is being placed at the right place. Is it appropriate? This is the design assessment. Now, the design is fine. It's being placed in the right place. Does it pop out when the car is being bumped?
Right.
Is it working effectively? Is it operating effectively? That is control effectiveness testing. So that's what we see. We try to see places where the car is being bumped and whether does the
Airbag actually come
airbag
over.
pop out.
Mhm.
Yes. Right. So we have controls are varied in nature. It is preventive, detective, corrective. This is a detective
Right.
control. The car example which I gave, the airbag one, it's a detective control. So that's how we test two different things. And what we give as deliverables, right? We do these design assessment and effectiveness testing. These two are internal deliverables. That is, we as a team at the field work level, we prepare these documents, we do the base level testings, we collect the information, we collect the evidences from the business, we do our testing analysis, and we come to a conclusion, and then we give it to our managers and the directors for review, and they
Right.
then issue a report, internal audit report. And if we find an issue, say the airbag is, it has a hole which doesn't help the uh, airbag is being popped out, but it's not
It's
helping
not
the
effectively
guy being
preventing the
protected.
incident.
Yes, yeah, preventing the thing. So that's an issue. So we find something called as an issue, and these issues come as a separate deliverable. So we work on audits. So audits are basically we split the entire organization into auditable entities, like different portfolios, different processes. We split them. Let's give an example. Let's say consumer lending as a one department or a one branch, right? Um, these branches will be having their own risks. So we'll identify this consumer lending and we'll do a separate audit for this consumer lending. We'll find all these risks. We'll have the controls mapped against these risks by the frontline team, who
Right.
are the parents of these controls. So we'll find these, they would have given ratings for the risks and controls. We will take them, we'll do our own independent testings, and we'll give the report. Now, if we find any issues there, those issues have to be remediated by the frontline team
Right.
along with the business. So they'll be closely working with the business. So business are the people who are having, say, if I take the example of consumer lending, they work directly with the business, right? They directly work with the consumers.
Right. They're
I
the
mean
face
the
of the bank, basically.
borrowers, right? So they know what's the risk, right? So they communicate the risks to the frontline team and they bring in appropriate controls. So when I find an issue as an auditor, it goes to them. It says that the way that your child has been brought up, there's something wrong, which I think you are the better person to remediate and bring it back to me. Because if I remediate, right, I am trying to be the parent myself. That will compromise my independence. So I won't do that. I will send it back to them. They will remediate and get it back to us. That is whatever they do to remediate. It's called a corrective action.
Right.
And this corrective actions comes to us, and we call it as issue validations. And we work on this corrective action to see whether the corrective action has been appropriate
Appropriately
to really
done.
correct that issue. So these are the two broad pieces of work we do: audits, issue validations, and control assessment. I mean, design assessment and the effectiveness testing are the two main deliverables which we work in the field, which we do in the field work. And then the issue reports or the audit reports are the ones which is being finally circulated to the stakeholders. So say we basically report to the CEO of the company,
Right.
right? So, and if there are regulatory specific audits which internal audits needs to do. They are called MRAs in US. It's called major regulatory requirements or applicability, something like that. So we need to work on them. There's a specific requirement. We'll do certain specific tailored procedures to give assurance. So we'll be directly communicating to the regulators.
All right.
That's how it is.
Got it. Perfect. So, and just one last question before we just conclude on the podcast. So, what do you think are the exit routes from internal audit? Like, let's say someone has got a rich experience in internal audit and they probably want to move out and look at better exit routes. Where do you think a person can probably land next?
So, see, I would say one safe reason I felt while choosing internal auditors, internal audit gives you easy exit routes. So, because I'll tell you honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how I want myself to be in the next 5 to 10 years. Right. I always had an interest and inclination towards going into teaching. While I felt, well, I am trying to figure it out and, kind of channelize how I'm going to enter into that field. I felt internal audit is where that, I get to gather more of business acumen, which I don't think the theory offers, right? You can't get that theoretically. So I felt that meanwhile I'm getting the business acumen, I can, try to figure out what I'm trying to build for myself. So it gives you a lot of exit opportunities. Like from internal audit, you can easily go into consulting. You can easily go into risk management rules. You can easily go into compliance, like money laundering, um, a lot of compliance, regulatory and law related stuff. You can go into there because internal audit gives you exposure to all those things. So if you want to go into a specific role, you can, in internal audit, you can choose a particular portfolio. I mean, in banks, you have a vast of portfolios, but if you are in a consulting firm where you're doing an internal audit, right? If you're in big fours, you're doing internal audit, you can still, you get exposure to manufacturing entities, you get exposure to IT entities, service entities. So it gives you wide exposure. So you can easily enter into consulting. You can get into risk management roles, compliance, and then why not? You can come back to external audit as well because you have, knowledge on risk assurance, right? You can easily come back into external audit, but that means that, coming back to the external audit, you need to be a chartered accountant. That I would say is a constraint in external audit. You need to be a CA, but internal audit is not like that. The entry is easy. The exit is also kind of pretty broad. So in that way, I felt it was very safe. So for me personally, I feel that even if I want to come back to external audit, which I don't think I might, but I can, is what I feel. And if I want to go into consulting, if I want to, kind of go into forensic audit, something which is, like fraud investigations, money laundering. So basically, in internal audit, Wells Fargo, I'm currently working in the fraud and claims management team. So that basically revolves around, the fraud detection aspects like identity theft. I know, what are the broad fraud things which can happen in the bank, some money laundering. So something related to that. But I feel that the exit opportunities are good enough. So you have a wide range of things. You can do courses which are, which gives you more wide global access like CIA, which I don't think if I go into the details, I think the time won't be sufficient. But CA is one gold standard of course, which gives you access to a lot of, not only internal audit, to a lot of opportunities regarding, relating to this consulting and stuff. So that's one good thing about internal audit.
Right. So I think the key takeaway probably which someone can take away is that if you get an internal audit, you're going to get a very, very deep business understanding because you're going to be talking with the process owners directly, and you're also going to be getting a good understanding of the process. So if you want to move to the same industry you're in, like let's say you're in internal audit in a banking company, you can probably transition there very easily. But let's say you want to go to, let's say, manufacturing concern in internal audit, the transition is going to be a little bit difficult, but it's not going to be impossible because you would need to get an understanding of that industry before you move in. And obviously, after you move in, also, you are going to get a good understanding on the job. But overall, the process and the substance is going to be the same. Whatever testing you're going to do, whatever stakeholder interactions you're going to have are broadly going to be the same. It's just that you need to tinker your approach according to the industry, is what I understood from what Sai conveyed. And I think it's an amazing domain to be a part of if you're probably interested. So you can definitely explore. And I think if you have any doubts with regard to internal audit, you can feel free to reach Sai. I am probably attaching his LinkedIn handle in the description and in the pinned comment. So you can feel free to reach him out without any hesitation, and he will be more than happy to clarify any doubts that you have with respect to internal audit. And thank you so much, Sai, for taking time out on Sunday and coming on the podcast. It means a lot. So thank you so much, guys, for your continued support and for watching till the end. And keep learning, keep growing, and wishing you all the best. Any closing comments you want to add on, Sai, before we start?
Anytime, Arvind, for you and for whatever you are doing. So I'm really happy that I was part of this podcast. I think I had a lot of things to talk, but I don't think that I channelized it better way. But I think, at a broader level, internal audit should be a very safe place. The entry is easy. The exit is also very safe. So if you're going into an internal audit, it should be good. Like especially when you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in your future, right? I think internal audit should be a good transit place where you get good, where you can accumulate a lot of business acumen. So I think internal audit should be good. But I had more inclination towards bank. That's where I felt that I can go into Wells Fargo. That's the reason. So
Okay.
thank you so
Good.
much, Arvind.
Good. No worries. Most welcome. And guys, if you have stayed till the end, so do comment down below what you feel. And if you are getting a great reception, we will definitely shoot a part 2, which is even more elaborate, where we do an even more deep dive and explore the process and explore an understanding of the world, right? Cheers. Thank you so much for staying till the end, guys. Keep learning, keep growing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.